Swearing in of Rochelle Nason for the City Council.
Well, if you don't mind just standing in front of the dais, please. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Rochelle Mason,
Do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start the meeting for Monday, July 21st of the City Council. And for our new council member, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Roll call.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Present.
Councilmember Barnes?
Present.
Councilmember Nason?
Present.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Here.
Mayor Weil?
Here. We had no actions from a closed session, so we'll go on to the consent calendar. And we will remove the minutes because Rochelle will not be voting on them from the last meeting, and we'll look at the other items on the consent calendar. Anything that you want to have pulled?
Yes, 4849.
Okay. Other items?
49 is one I want to discuss also.
Okay. Members of the public? Aleda, yes. You for number 414. Oh, could you please come to the podium, please?
And I'm unfamiliar with your process. I have a public comment. How do I get her?
We have a space for public comment a little bit later under Good of the City.
Okay.
And this is the part.
Where does that, about an hour or two? Or
It depends on how long these other items
do
take.
you know where it comes under, after what item it comes?
It comes up after the proclamation that we have to the USDA.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay. Marge, 48?
Yeah, this is, has to do with a mental health services grant. And let's see. Yeah, this is helping seniors, and I am very interested in what the classes are, because it does talk about the classes here, but it doesn't really give us a lot of detail. And I was wondering if you could tell us what it says drop-in, and I'm just wondering what the seniors are doing when they drop in.
Sure. Well, basically, there's two types of classes. The first type of class is a support group. So it's a 12-week support group where seniors learn to use iPads. So they're given an iPad at the beginning of the class, and slowly, when they meet each week, they meet for 2 hours, and then they learn all that is, they learn together on how to use the iPad. And the drop-in class came about after we finished our first support group. we found that our seniors still needed help and wanted to continue to learn on how to use their iPads because they found that the iPad to be a great tool to connect with families, to resources, and they wanted to learn more. So we started the drop-in class, which basically now we have 2 drop-in classes that meet on a weekly basis. And the beginning to the class that's the beginners to intermediate class, basically people continue learning about their iPad and how to use them. So it can be, how to send an email, how to, for us, most of us, we all know what the internet is, but these were for people who had never accessed a computer or any technology. So it's been really gratifying to see them learn bit by bit all of this information. So that's why we did a drop-in class. So there's a different topic each week that they...
So support, I wasn't sure what support was in terms of whether it's a talking thing, but this is actually hands-on to combat loneliness or just get them up to speed with the new world, kind of?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So it's facilitated by an instructor with some volunteers. And what we do often is we'll pair the people, the students together so that in between classes they can learn to email each other, they can learn to, or if they have an issue, they can call each other and try to figure it out. They can also come to the senior center at any time and staff is available to help them through what they need.
This is how we talk to our grandchildren, right? Yeah. To figure this out.
Well, yes,
Okay.
I mean, a lot of seniors say, it's like now I can email my grandchild and I'm actually getting pictures from them. So, because a lot of seniors have families on the East Coast or in the different areas, and oh yes, and the best thing about it is that after they finish the support group, after 12 weeks, if they finish successfully and we feel like they have a good grasp of the iPad, then they get to keep the iPad. Yeah. So for the 6 support groups we've done, all of our seniors have gotten to keep their iPads. So.
Right, now I can finally catch up with my 94-year-old father-in-law who's on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. I was just more interested in how that was going and what they were actually doing as support, and was a little confused. So anyway, thanks.
Glad I could clarify.
Okay. And then 4.9, you and Pete wanted to have that pulled?
My question on the program, there's a program about how to help people get update their homes and such. Oh, there you are. It would start in August, it sounds like. How would the community access this program to get help with, upgrades in their house?
You're speaking to the California program?
Yeah, the
California
HER.
First program, the
HER
HERO program.
Yeah.
How people would access it, usually through the contractors, so they do contractor outreach.
Thinking of how the community is going to find out that this is available, because people don't always know that we have these things that are possible.
Yeah, so we can do outreach through the city, through the city website, through the newsletter and other media outlets, and then the HERO program has their own marketing program as well. So they do contractor outreach and contractor trainings, and then if people contact contractors, that's one of the options that they can do for financing if they're already looking to do these upgrades.
Thank you.
Okay. Pete, did you want to add anything?
Well, that was actually my main question, but I also had some questions. I see, so the way this is done, it's private financing, private money on bonds, and then they'll be paid off by an assessment on your taxes.
Right.
Has there been any feedback from private lenders on this? I mean, how popular, and has it presented any problems for people that say have gotten money this way? Because usually if somebody's going to give a second or a loan, they don't necessarily want to be lower on the ladder of being paid off. Has you heard anything about this? Or
I haven't heard much about it, but John Law is here from the HERO program if you want to speak to that question.
I don't know if you understood my question, but
I do understand your question. Would you come up to the microphone?
I'd love to hear a comment.
Hi, I'm John Law. I'm representing the HERO program. Thank you for hearing the item tonight. We're excited to be able to come to your community. So it is you've described it exactly right. Private funding, public oversight with the JPA mechanism being the government public entity, and is repaid through property tax assessment, which is in essence a senior position. So there are some issues that have surrounded PACE, which is the legislation we operate under, AB 811, for a number of years. There is a reserve fund that has been set up by the governor's office that went live earlier this year to make that entity comfortable. Property owners are also fully disclosed that at time of sale or refinance, while the legislation allows the assessment to stay with the property, the lender may require that assessment to be paid off just as if it were a second loan or something like you described.
Okay. Who, out of curiosity, are the private lenders in this situation? Are they large banks, investment companies?
So do you mean those that are the growth funding for our company itself, or the funding that's providing capital to the marketplace?
Funding that's providing capital for.
Yeah, so there's a number of investment communities. It's typically, we have a $350 million revolving line of credit, essence, that allows us to fund, instantly, so to speak. And the way that is replenished is through securitization, meaning large pools of these bonds are put together and sold off. And the first successful residentially backed securitization ever to take place took place March of this year. It was sold by the HERO program. Deutsche Bank handled the transaction.
Okay. I just also wanted to note, and it's coming up later on our agenda, the League of California Cities event in September has a presentation that I think the Western Riverside Council is giving.
That would be us, and we'll be in attendance there. As of this past week, 169 California communities have opted into HERO. We've funded projects on over 13,500 homes for $288 million so far. So we'll have a presence there. WRCOG is part of the team. They're the government at the center of HERO, and very often is invited to speak at various events.
Okay, thank you.
Marge?
Could you say some of the projects that people could apply for?
Oh, certainly. There's about 58 different product categories. Product eligibility, the individual line items are about 150,000 different products, right? So there has to be an efficiency standard met for whatever the agency that determines energy efficiency for that different type of product. So now I'll answer the question. So solar, windows and doors, heating and air conditioning, water conservation. We have indoor and outdoor, hundreds of different improvements that property owners can make to conserve water, and I think that's really the untapped potential of PACE going forward. But those are the big categories that we do. About a third is solar, about 2/3 is energy efficiency, or work that very often is already being done now, only with this mechanism it gets done at a higher level of efficiency more affordably.
I wondered, is there any way that projects are ranked for homeowners? In other words, what's the most cost effective? Who gives them guidance on that? I mean, a lot of people want to put solar panels on the roof, but that may not be a very cost effective way to save energy compared to simpler things that could be done. Is there any kind of guidance?
Yeah. So for example, sometimes doing great energy and efficiency improvements to that home first requires a smaller solar system to be just as effective, right? So we're a finance mechanism. There's some great protection for the consumer out there that doesn't otherwise exist with HERO. But at the end of the day, we're a finance mechanism. We qualify contractors to make sure they're certified with the program. We encourage test-in, test-out audits. We encourage doing whole home performance experts when consumers choose who they're going to do business with. At the same time, though, we're not in the middle of that.
Okay, so essentially it's left up to the market for the homeowner to decide what he wants to do?
It is. However, we have really good standards resulting in 9 out of 10 would recommend HERO to their family, and 9 out of 10 are completely satisfied with the contractor. And the reason why is that eligibility of the projects that I talked about earlier, the contractor certification that's required. And jobs don't get funded by HERO unless all the appropriate permits have been pulled and submitted, which automatically increases the quality of work performed.
Okay.
Any more?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to City Council, in terms of a vote minus the minutes.
The 414?
Oh, pardon me, Aleda.
That I was wanted to add information that I didn't include in the staff report because I didn't have it at the time. At the last meeting on July 7th, you asked for an add-on task for the design or the consideration of mini traffic circles on the 800 block of Washington Avenue. So I do have the information, and the cost will be between $31,500 to $51,500, depending on the number of mini circles, which would bring the contract between $60,200 and $80,200. We do have traffic calming funding for every year. We're at $60,000 per year that we can use to fund this study, this design, if you agree to enter into a contract with the add-on. Also, another thing that I want to add is that the mini roundabouts have not been processed through the Traffic and Safety Commission, but if we go through the design process, we will have 2 or 3 meetings where this design will be processed through the Traffic and Safety Commission if it's feasible on the block.
Questions?
Well, I'll ask the question I asked 2 weeks ago, which is, nothing that we're approving tonight involves pouring concrete, right?
No, this is design only.
Okay.
And at this point, you're not sure how many of these mini rounds you're suggesting?
We'll have to take a look at the site and also conduct some topographic survey in order to know if they're feasible, if it can fit or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You were the one that had this idea. Is there anything?
My thought on it was something like what Berkeley had tried at one point, or initially when they were getting into this, where it was, essentially a concrete flower pot that they would stick in at an intersection, and, if it worked, it could stay, or you could enlarge on that. If it didn't work, you could pick it up and move it. And I think what the attraction for me was that it was something that you could experiment with. It wasn't necessarily a permanent thing. Now, I'm not sure what you're giving us the prices on. Is that more permanent than my imagination here, or?
Well, I thought that you were talking with the planters is a partial barrier that actually was included in the original study.
Yeah.
But that's more like the last phase of changes we might want to implement, because the partial entry might trigger some environmental work because of the circulation of the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that we can have a planter like to work as a mini circle. It has to be a design circle.
Okay.
Michelle, any questions from you? So you're saying that for this plan, that it would cost around $60,000, and we do have that in
Go
our
with
budget.
one mini circle, and I really think that it could work at one intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's worth exploring it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you want to approve up to $60,200 tonight to go with one mini circle option.
So we would change 414 to up to
From 28,700. From 28,700 to the add-on, which is 31,500.
for a total of
The total would be 60,200.
60,200. Okay. Okay, back to City Council then. Is there a motion without minutes? Oh.
There may be some public comment.
Oh, Comments from the public? Okay. Do you want to come to the podium so people who are watching at home can hear? Yes, this is, go ahead, 414, we're on.
All right, 414. Well, I just have a short thing. So I'm saying traffic calming has been tested, results have been published. What tests of red curbing have been done? What were the results? Have they been published? How much space is required for walkers and strollers? Is it 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet? How much space is available? Where are the pinch points? What can reasonably be done to get more space? That's my comments.
Okay, thank you. Next person?
Hello. I'm a recent resident of Washington Avenue, although I've been living in Albany for about 5 years. I'm a former Superior Court judge of Alameda County. I was a traffic and parking magistrate from 1985 through 1988. So I have some familiarity with issues involving traffic and parking. And I would just reiterate or support what the other gentleman was talking about. From my perch on Washington Avenue, it appears to me that cars are parked in the street and on the sidewalks. And it seems to me that the plan that I've reviewed doesn't really adequately speak to that issue, because from what I could tell, it has traffic moving in both directions between Polk and I believe it's Gateview. And with traffic moving in both directions, there's a real problem. If traffic were to travel in one direction, which I understand is part of the plan, is that still part of the plan?
It's a partial barriers that actually will be the last phase if the other pilot project shows that the incremental traffic calming features do not reach the goal, then we might have to go to the partial barriers.
Well, I guess I've read the plan a couple of times, and quite frankly, I don't understand clearly what is being proposed, and that may be my problem and not the planners. But I do feel that a one-way street makes sense, but removing parking from that street, which is incredibly congested, forcing people to park on the sidewalks, really doesn't seem to me to get to the issue. I would suggest, and I understand it's late in the game for suggestions, but if there is a one-way street, it probably would allow people to park in the street, which is what they should be doing. I mean, every time someone parks on the sidewalk, they're violating the law. And it would be nice if people could abide by the law by parking in the street, and there would be a one-way flow of traffic. There would be plenty of room for cars if there was a one-way flow of traffic. And I would assume it would run counter to the prevailing movement of traffic, which is from the freeway towards Berkeley. If it were in the other direction, I would think that that would solve the problem to some extent, because people wouldn't be using, I would assume, and of course you have the information, but I would assume most of the traffic is moving from the freeway area towards Berkeley.
Could I ask you to bring your comments to a close?
All right, well, my comment is that I think that the proposal that I have seen and the maps that I have seen do not adequately represent a reasonable and appropriate response to what is a significant problem, but would be so much more substantial and significant if the plan, as I understand it, would be followed.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. Name's Francis Chapman. Live on the 800 block between Gateview and Polk. Been participating in this process since, I believe, 2010. The active transportation plan. There was a workshop in this room. There's a workshop in the library. Both times we put Washington on the agenda, and both times it got pulled off with no explanation. We came back to TNS after the transportation plan was passed and started a process that about 3 years later has us here. I just want to make a few key points because we've been participating throughout. I unfortunately missed the council meeting, the last council meeting, due to a vacation conflict. We have amongst, if not the narrowest street in Albany, then tied for the narrowest street. We've had 2 speed surveys. The first was 23.6. The second was over 22 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone. The first measured over 1,000 vehicles a day on a very narrow, congested street. PD has testified in a traffic and safety meeting that there is no speeding enforcement on our street, 0. They can't, there's not enough room. This is a concern to me, given how much speeding we have. Red striping will increase speeds. I asked the engineers when we did the walkthrough, the engineers who donated their time to provide the analysis of our street, made a point of asking them about red striping. They said this will increase speeds because it increases the width of the roadway. So that would be counter to what we've been working for 4 years. 2 meetings ago, the one I did make for traffic and safety, we backed a proposal that would have moved parking from the south to the north side between Gateview and Polk, would have added spots rather than removing spots, with the goal of enhancing the traffic calming, because I believe calming is the first goal. Let's get control of our street, and then we can do other things to make it, to enhance it. So I think that proposal somehow got lost between traffic and safety and where we are today, and I believe that would actually be a better pilot project than anything I've seen on paper yet. And then the last point I just want to make is we actually have a significant problem with prevailing flows by time of day, so you can't really solve it in one direction. It's kind of a 2-directional problem depending if you're cutting to San Pablo or cutting from the freeway. So it is a very difficult problem given all the different challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Eba De La Rosa. I'm also on the 800 block of Washington. Just adding to what Francis said, we started this process when my children were in a stroller, and we were having to push the stroller in the street because there was not enough egress for us to get by on the sidewalk. So it'd be in the street with the children and cars coming by. So they're now entering 2nd grade, just to give you a frame of reference how long this has been going on. Other things, in addition to being one of the narrowest streets in Albany, we also have, I believe, the narrowest sidewalks. So if we red zone, you're removing cars, which provide a buffer for the children and pedestrians that are on the sidewalk. So the cars do serve some purpose being parked there. We also have a blind hill on the crest of Albany, so it is it can be a very dangerous spot to be a pedestrian. I just wanted to add too that in previous meetings, as Francis said, we've been going through this a lot, attending a lot of meetings. Some people had concern about it being cut through, so they didn't have to deal, because you couldn't turn on Pierce. Since we started this process, we now have the traffic light on Pierce. So I think for a lot of neighbors, the need for Washington to be a cut through to get down by the Mallard is no longer as much of a concern, because now we can use Pierce to get to some of the main thoroughfares. That's pretty much it. I just really am hoping we can see some resolution to this. Aleda has been great. We did see some progress being made in our neighborhood. There were some stop signs put on the intersection of Washington and Polk, and I think that's helped alleviate some of the speeding. But in addition to not having speeding enforcement, we see people going through those stop signs all the time. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
I'm Chris Kent, 808 Cerrito Street. I have a driveway on Washington. I've also worked with Francis over the last year in the community to look at this issue. We were all along concerned that the city might take the easy way out and paint the red curb, and that's exactly what has come to pass. And the reason that's not a good idea has kind of been said, and I'll repeat it. When I walked down the street with my now 5-year-old, but at the time was 3-year-old, and my 10-year-old, I'd hit a car, we'd have to walk in the street around the car, and I would hold their hands. But that teaches them, you walk around the car. And as soon as they get away from me, that's what they would do. They run out in the street around the car and run down. It just scared the hell out of me. And nothing has happened, and I haven't seen anything like that happen yet, but it just seems to me that it's waiting to happen. And so the idea, it has to be resolved. We have to get the cars off the street. I think we all know that. When cars off the sidewalk onto the street, that's clear. Painting the red stripe basically allows the cars to go faster. It solves one problem and causes another. So I don't think it's really the solution. It's a complex thing, and Alita has been working with us and others, and I know they've been doing a lot of testing, and I think it's been great. But I missed the last meeting too, and I was kind of a little surprised to see the red curb idea. Now I realize it's just one little piece that experimenting with, so maybe that's not so bad, but it looks like it's leading towards the red curb solution, which I don't think is a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Hi, my name is Jessica Petzold, and I live on the west side of Catherine's Path, and I have 2 little ones, a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And cars are going by really, really fast, and it's in either direction that we're going, we're finding it really, really hard to cross the street without being run over. And I think taking the cars away from the street is a bad idea because it allows more room and allows more speeding. I think maybe, I don't know, I'm proposing maybe one solution, maybe putting a stop sign right at the crest of the hill, just so that, whenever their cars are up there, they actually have to stop there. Or maybe, like the other gentleman proposed, maybe having a one-way street. And another thing about parking is, I used to live in San Francisco for almost all my life, and my neighborhood actually has very, very little parking spaces. And what has happened before was residents are having to place their garbage cans to save parking spots. And I actually have to, a couple of times, park in Gateview and has received notes on my windshield, don't park here, this is my spot. And I just don't want that kind of relationship with my neighbors. So I think taking away the parking space, I think is a bad idea. I think it's not going to solve the problem of the speeding. I think it's going to maybe have people speed more because streets are wider. So I think, or I hope there's another resolution other than painting the curbs red. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Maureen Simmons. I'm a 30-year resident on Albany Hill, and we have seen the traffic and the parking both get worse on years that we've been here. But I'm in the camp of people who don't want the whole street painted red on our side of the street from one intersection to the next, because a lot of the people don't have but a one-car garage. And they have to park on the street, and if you take all that parking away, they're going to have to move out into the other neighborhoods. And like she just said, that's not going to make the other neighborhoods happy with us. And we were trying to build a community here. We want to be friends. We want to find an equitable solution. We want people to be safe. But we don't want to do it in a way that creates another whole set of problems. So I hope you will not consider taking away 20 parking spaces in a neighborhood where there's not any to go around as it is. And the other thing I'd like to ask is that the outreach be increased in some way, because a lot of people in our neighborhood had no idea that any of this was going on. And I've lived here 30 years myself, and I got no notice. Someone who heard about it told me. So that's why I'm here. So if there's some way you could leaflet the neighborhood and say, this is happening, do you want to participate? Do you have any input? I think that'd be great because more people would have something to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, back to the city council. Is there a motion?
Can I make a comment quickly? I just want to say, I personally have no stake in this, but I guess my question to you all who've spoken is, if we opened up a room in a community center and brought you all in one morning and threw in a lot of donuts and coffee and locked you in until you had come up with a solution that you all agreed to, could you do that? Because I would be perfectly happy with that, just speaking as one council member. But I can't tell, I know that street fairly well. When this became an issue, I drove up and down it a few times. But I can't tell if you all agree with each other or not. So I'm not sure if the problem is that we're not hearing you or that you disagree with each other. But from my perspective, I'm happy to give you what you want, as long as it's legal. And that's what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Yeah, I just really sympathize because if there was a way to not have people cut through that street, it would be great. And I don't know, we do have a raised traffic crosswalk eventually, but it seems to me we need at least that, if not something more at that crest. Anyway, I don't suppose we can close the street, just have the neighbors. If that was a solution, I don't know if that would work or not. But I agree. I think you all have some really good ideas. I think, aren't you going to be listening some more to what they're saying, right?
We have listened to all of that through the Traffic and Safety Commission. One of the issues with the partial barriers or the one-way street is that it would give you between 8 and 9 feet of a traffic lane, which is not even enough width for the emergency response. And I think I reported that at the last meeting.
I was thinking if it's not really a street, maybe we could have it changed.
We do have also the other issue of environmental studies, more traffic analysis if we're going to cross the street. I mean, and that's part of the plan. That's part of the plan. If you guys want to go that way, it will be maybe going that way right now.
But we wouldn't really know that until later, until you try some of these things.
I think the best approach is to implement these traffic calming features, incrementally, and monitor and get back to the Traffic and Safety Commission and to you, and see if it's been effective. We've been implementing it gradually, and the test area for the red curves between Gateview and Polk was the next step also, in addition to the raised crosswalk and the design of the bulb out. So
there's a way for people to sign up if they want to get information from the city, so that they would know about what's happening. So maybe connect some of that too.
And I have to say that I send the notifications.
Sometimes,
but there's always.
Okay. We notify people on the affected streets routinely when we have traffic and safety meetings about things like this.
Yes, it could be that, it's dropping, I don't know. I mean, we used to have a smaller notification size. Right now it's half a page, so in order to make it more visible for the mail person to deliver.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I like what Michael had to say quite a bit. We're faced with a street that's, by modern standards, doesn't make it. It's too small. Sidewalks that are too small. Not enough parking for everybody. There's just all these problems. Plus, there's a couple of things that we're going for here. One is to slow down traffic and also have sidewalks that people can walk on. And those aren't necessarily complementary things. It may be that we can slow down traffic, but cars will still be on sidewalks, or we can have the sidewalks free, but cars will speed up. The long and short of it, it's obviously pretty complicated. I liked what I said last time was I liked that the city was trying to do this incrementally, try something, experiment, see if it works, and if it doesn't, we can go back on it if we can. I personally would have, I know the idea of making traffic, say, one way or doing something with, blocking the end of a block would trigger environmental reports. And I understand that's an expense that we don't necessarily want to take on, but I think in this situation, we shouldn't shy away from that. I mean, it's, maybe we have to put it into next year's budget if depending upon what that expense is. But obviously, there isn't a easy solution that everybody can come up with right away, because if there was, we would have done it. And as Michael said, I'm not sure, from listening to all the neighbors, it sounds like everybody has kind of a bit of conflicting agendas here. So, perhaps we should be taking this off and going back for a little more study on it.
Add that even with the one-way or circulation, if you take into consideration 7 feet of parking on each side of the street, it will leave with about 8.5 traffic flow lane, which is still very narrow. So I don't think that all vehicles will be able to pass, or we still have to have red curves, even with the one-way circulation.
Well, perhaps that's where we're going to. I don't know. I mean, the other idea would be to take out the sidewalk on one side and just have sidewalk on, and then, maybe that would give you then enough room to have, parking and a larger sidewalk. But that, again, a huge expense for the city if we
Especially
took that
because
route.
of drainage.
And, other issues on a hill.
All right, is there a motion from the city council on this?
So this motion is to accept the consent calendar now, right?
Well, with the
Or this-
modification
these
on
are-
414.
Yeah, if you want to make a modification to that particular item, I would do that separately, and then do the minutes, and then do the rest of the consent calendar.
Okay, so first
So
on
should we vote
414.
on 414 then? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept 414 with the amendment to change the amount up to $60,200.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Poll the council.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Nason?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Aye.
Mayor Wow?
Yes. Okay, so that's unanimous. And then the rest of the consent calendar, is there a motion?
I move the rest of the consent calendar.
The minutes.
Except for the minutes. Do you want to do the minutes first? Sorry. I move the consent calendar with the exception of the minutes.
Aye, a second.
Okay. Poll the council.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Nason?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Aye.
Mayor Wow?
Yes, that passes unanimously. And now vote on the minutes. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Poll the council.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Nason?
Abstain.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Aye.
Mayor Wow?
Yes. And then we'll go ahead with the next item. If people would please leave quietly.
Presentation, proclamation in recognition of the USDA's reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Albany.
Okay, Vice Mayor Moss will be presenting this. Is there someone from USDA who's going to be accepting? Okay, excellent.
So, this is a proclamation in recognition of the USDA's reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Albany. Whereas the Environmental Protection Agency determined that current and future greenhouse gas concentration endanger public health, and whereas climate change is affecting food security by reducing the growth and yields of important crops, and whereas droughts, floods, and reduced snowpack in the Sierra are altering water supplies and rising sea levels, and extreme weather are issues that are beginning to affect the San Francisco Bay Area. And whereas the City of Albany has been a leader in the fight against climate change, having adopted a climate action plan in 2010, which aims to reduce the city's carbon emissions to 25% below 2004 baseline emission levels by 2020. And whereas the state of California has enacted Assembly Bill AB 32, the California Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006, which requires California to reduce statewide greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas in June 2013, President Obama issued a comprehensive climate action plan which aims to lead international efforts to address global climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 17% below 2005 levels by 2020. And whereas the United States Department of Agriculture Western Regional Research Center recently completed a lighting retrofit in their greenhouses, and whereas Lumigrow Incorporated provided LED greenhouse luminaries that reduce light pollution, reduce energy usage by 40 to 70%, and are manufactured in Alameda County. And whereas the USDA project will conserve nearly 440,000 kilowatts per year, or the equivalent of 105 metric tons of carbon emissions. And whereas it is estimated that the USDA project will lead to a 1% reduction in citywide commercial electricity usage, now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Albany City Council hereby recognizes the United States Department of Agriculture for its work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Albany.
Should they introduce themselves? We'd love to hear.
Yeah, would you like to introduce yourselves and the positions you have at USDA?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for this recommendation and, proclamation in our honor. I'm acting for our current center director, Dr. Howard Zhang, and my name's Tara McHugh.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Laudenshichinquanco. I'm one of the scientists at USDA, and I'm one of the beneficiaries of this efficient lighting for my greenhouses in Albany. I grow a lot of wheat to meet the demand of the growing population to increase the yield, and also to meet the changing environment, climate change, world climate change. And so it's my pleasure to be able to reduce the amount of energy that we use to grow our plants in our greenhouses. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Carter. I'm a resident of Albany. I work for the Center Director's Office, and I helped kind of start this project about 2.5 years ago. We had some scientists who were very skeptical. So Lumigrow provided some free lights, and they did some testing, and a lot of the plants were found to be favorable in the essence of increased growth, decreasing growth time, decreasing water usage, increased yields, stronger root systems, and we didn't test all plants, but we tested, like I say, wheat and switchgrass and various other things, corn. So we're very pleased with this result, and we're very honored that the City of Albany has granted us this proclamation this evening. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Clarice Dixon. I'm the contract specialist for the Western Regional Research Center, and I can say I happily purchased these lights. It was a win-win situation. As Chris said, that it had positive results on our plant research, and it also is a reduction in our utilities.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Ron Hoff. I'm a scientist at the Western Regional Research Center and an engineer. And the only thing I would add is this is actually just one of quite a few measures being taken by the center to reduce energy consumption and carbon footprint. So hopefully there'll be more proclamations in the future.
That sounds good to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the work you do and also for taking the time to be here tonight with us.
Mayor, I want to interject very briefly as a university science writer. The Western Regional Research Center is unique because I believe it's the only site in the nation that has been proclaimed a National Chemical Historical Landmark twice. First for time and temperature studies right after World War II. Most of the technology for freezing vegetables, which was actually pretty hard to figure out, was done at the Western Regional Research Center. And then about a year ago, you got your second one. I know Keith Lindblom, who's the guy in DC who does these, for flavor studies using complex gas chromatograph type studies to figure out why foods taste differently and how to make them taste better. So it's really a unique place. And now that I've softened you up, can we get tours? How do you get tours?
Yeah, I could probably arrange that if you give me a call.
Okay, you want to
Yeah,
give me
I think we got a tour after the last award.
5600.
Okay, so you'll maybe arrange that for the city council?
Yeah, it would be fun.
Good. Yeah, I think we did that a year or two ago. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you, Michael, for pointing those things out. Good. All right, we'll hope to see you again. Okay, Nicole, next item.
Public hearing. I'm sorry. Good of the city, public forum announcements. Persons desiring to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda, please note that the city policy limits each speaker up to 3 minutes. The mayor may reduce the time limit per speaker depending on the number of speakers. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or for a future agenda.
Okay, first speaker.
Good evening. Compliments to the new council member and blessings to you guys for trying to do this job. So thank you. I'd like to give you a leaflet that I'm here with the Giltrap Community Farm, and I'd like to give you the leaflet that gives the open hours and days and times. And I brought some produce, and so if anybody is interested in any of these, I'd be happy to share them with you or with the audience. And I invite you all to come out and check us out and participate in harvesting and weeding and watering and all the stuff it takes to make a farm happen. So thank you. I should give these. Okay, anything in particular anybody wants right now or not?
Well, you might bring that to the people in the lobby, too.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Next
Thank you,
speaker,
guys.
please.
Good evening, Albany staffers and such. I'd like to call to your attention a lack of feedback that I've received from, oddly enough, the feedback page. I have thrice, filled out the, what is it called, how we do it, or what are we doing, or what the hell? I'm not sure what the page is called. It's the feedback page that's really hard to find on the City of Albany website. And I have thrice filled it out with concerns about what I feel, and I'm sure others would feel, were violations of the United States Fair Housing Act and Americans with Disabilities Act that I feel that I endured at the hands of the City of Albany via letters as such. And once I actually received a response the following day, and at no point during the response that I received was those concerns brought up. Instead, I was asked if I could stop the anarchists from building blockades, which I never approved of in the first place. And I was asked if we could take some tarps down from our camp. But I did not receive an actual response to my concerns about violations of the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act that I feel that myself and my partner suffered at the hands of the City of Albany. So I just thought I'd bring it to y'all's attention, everybody up there at the dais, so that maybe somebody, anybody with the City of Albany could perhaps respond to the feedback messages that I sent forth, so I could get some opinion from y'all on how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Jay Marlette. I am an Albany resident and a home inspector by profession. I have devoted my career promoting building safety. I do not want to have neighbors build anything illegally next door that either diminishes the enjoyment of my home or, more importantly, that is unsafe. This year, my neighbor started building a fence that was too high. I informed the neighbor of my concerns and of our fence ordinance, and despite my effort, the illegal fence construction continued. I informed the building department. The building department did come out and did not stop construction. I was confused. The next morning, I went to the building department personally on my way to work. I found the neighbors at the counter speaking to the building inspector. As soon as I announced myself, I was treated with open contempt for reasons I do not understand. I then wrote a complaint to the head of the building department. In this letter, I requested that the inspector's behavior is addressed and the fence ordinance be enforced. Instead, I was informed that I should not come to the counter and I should direct my inquiries to the department head directly. I was also informed that the fence ordinance will not be enforced because they do not have a code enforcement department. I moved on to writing the city manager, briefly explaining the fence issue and offering my opinion that not enforcing the code is wrong. The response amounted to allowing the neighbors to throw dirt up against their side of the fence to make it 6 feet, despite it is still more than 7 in some places. A little while after that, I hear construction in the neighbor's sub-area. Again, I do not want unsafe work next door. After multiple emails, the building department looked into it. They did come out and discover more serious illegal work. The neighbors were just asked to stop and get a permit when they feel like it. When I asked about a lack of fine, I was reminded that the City of Albany does not have a code enforcement department. I was thankful for bringing this to the city's attention and was asked to let them know if they do any more illegal work. Unfortunately, this collaborative approach towards individuals who break the law gives one message and one message only. The only reason why we are here is not because you broke the law or that you're being unsafe. It's because your neighbor keeps complaining. This results in harassment from the neighbors and becomes 100% my problem. Because harassment, if done right, is a civil matter. What that means for somebody like me with few resources, I just have to take it and record it. I feel strongly that the building department's actions and inactions created a hostile environment for me. I also believe that the approach to lawbreakers fosters an unsafe community. In short, I believe we need a code enforcement department.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, City of Albany Council and members of the public. I'm here to talk tonight about a mental illness known as narcissistic personality disorder, which gave rise to the decisions and omissions and acts of indifference against the homeless at the Albany Bulb, meaning city government. I'm a law school graduate from the College of California School of Law, former paralegal, the offices of J. Tony Serra, John Burris, and Osha Newman. I am a mental health and homeless commissioner formerly for 9 years in the city of Berkeley. I'm a Jewish Christian and a disciple of Christ. I'm the sole person who has the designation of being the recipient of $200,000, which were expended on me alone, except for a woman who lasted 2 days in the female side of the shelter at the Albany Bulb. By the way, and by way of humor, I happen to have a large sense of self or ego, not uncommon in these kind of settings, and so the next time the city of Albany sees fit to expend $200,000 on my behalf, that I would like it to be done directly to me so that I'm able to properly advocate for those who are not served. Speaking about narcissism briefly, narcissism is something that was familiar in my history. It's a developmental retardation, or a person doesn't feel enough love, so there's a lot of affect, there's a lot of superiority, there's a lot of pretense, there's a lot of absorption and expedience and details and staying away from reality. The disidentification with people of the bulb, the disdain for them, the inability to see oneself in their humanity is a function of illness. It doesn't work. It isn't positioning you particularly well to do homeless services in the future. As a homeless commissioner in the city of Berkeley, I had 3 years of visiting sites. I formed a very strong alliance with Building Opportunities for Self-Sufficiency and many other providers. The Albany shelter was the worst, bar none, that I have ever witnessed. It was not only negligent, it's sometimes grossly unlawful. And by the way, there is a communication with Stephen Cogswell at HUD, who's considering an investigation in terms of HUD's ability to bring suit. But it's just a function of something else. I'm taken aback by the quality of how we treat life. Life is very short. I suffer from an autoimmune disease known as Morgellons. I was left out in the cold 6 times at the Albany bulb for reasons that are manifestly absurd, including leaving out a can of beans, not intentionally, which was photographed and sent to a supervisor. A disagreement between me and a staff member if I left 1 minute after the curfew or 1 minute before the curfew, which became the occasion of many police reports. And this is how the city of Berkeley expends its time. And I see from the proceedings that we've lost our meaning and we've lost our soul. And it's a really hard road to kind of extract oneself from a position of mental illness. I know that personally from experience. But it doesn't position you particularly well if you lack the compassion for yourself to be pretending to be serving others. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Eric Husted. I'm a resident of Berkeley. Every one of you sitting on the city council is, I would say, guilty of discriminating against homeless people. Just today, maybe it was Friday, there was a news story following the people that have been forcibly removed from the bulb or took a small amount of money to leave because they didn't think that they could get anything better. And everything that we advocates came here and let you know was going to happen has happened. The hygienic conditions that many of the people were living with deteriorated as they moved to the Gilman underpass. And there was, this story contained an anecdote of when the police made them move from the Gilman underpass, the reporter watched someone go and set up in a train yard where the trains go by there. So I just wanted to let you know that all that stuff that we said about those people have a community there and they keep each other safe. Like, if you follow them, you can see those conditions deteriorating. Earlier this spring, I believe it was in March, the UN Human Rights Committee said that criminalizing homeless people in the United States is cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. And when you turn people into criminals for existing as they have for several years, that's criminalizing, and I think that's what you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Signe Madsen again. I should have noticed that Amber Whitson was in the audience and going to speak, and I just want to support what's been said on this issue of homelessness, and I encourage you guys to step up to this situation and actually deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Karen White, Albany resident. I would just like you to know that I attended the countywide homelessness planning session last week, where the rest of the cities in this county were discussing mainly about how there aren't enough beds and how there need to be more beds and how there needs to be more accountability on who gets those beds, et cetera, and all the things that can be done. In addition to the main the main problem in this county, which is there isn't enough low-income housing, and especially very low-income housing available. But I just want to say, in light of that, creating a shelter here where only one bed was used per month, just to fill your legal obligations instead of helping to meet those needs of the entire county and all of the homeless people in this county, to me is an egregious disservice, not only to Albany, but to the entire county of Alameda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay. Any announcements from the City Council? Okay, next item, please.
Public hearing. Amendments to the Planning and Zoning Code related to sign regulations to restrict digital billboards in the commercial mixed-use zoning district. Staff recommendation that the council introduce for first reading Ordinance 2014-06, amending Chapter 20, Planning and Zoning of the Albany Municipal Code related to digital billboards in the commercial mixed-use zoning district. The Planning and Zoning Commission adopted Resolution 2014-03, forwarding a recommendation to the City Council to authorize amendments to Chapter 20, Planning and Zoning of the Albany Municipal Code. The proposed amendments would restrict digital billboards in the commercial mixed-use zoning district.
Jeff?
Good evening, City Council members. Prepared for City Council consideration this evening is a draft ordinance that eliminates the recently adopted language related to digital billboards and the related development standards in the CMX, Commercial Mixed Use Zoning District. The proposed changes were drafted following the City Council's June 9th hearing, where you reviewed the conceptual design for the Public Works Service Center. At that meeting, you received public testimony expressing some concern about the potential digital billboard, the impacts on residents, as well as impacts on environmentally sensitive areas. The council at the end of that the end of that agenda item directed staff to terminate the lease negotiations with Clear Channel and to begin the process of amending the Planning and Zoning Code. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review the changes at a recent meeting and voted 3-1 to recommend to you that you approve the proposed changes. Commissioner Donaldson dissented, and he's here this evening, and he may be able to respond to any questions you have regarding his concerns. The original changes to the Planning and Zoning Code were introduced in the context of generating revenues to help pay for the new Public Works Service Center. Without the revenues from the digital billboard coming in, we've adjusted the scope of work for the service center in order to make that project financially feasible. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Council members? Michael?
I'd like to hear from Commissioner Donaldson about what his concerns were.
Before we do that, any questions to Jeff? Or should we go to, okay? You want to come up?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you. All right, so where should I start on this? Originally, I think I know I was very skeptical about the whole idea of the digital billboards when they first came to the commission, and I think that was the Planning and Zoning Commission's first reaction quite clearly. The more I studied it and thought about it and looked into it, the more I came around 180 degrees on it for several important reasons. I know there's a lot of opposition against the whole idea, but I really was disappointed when you cut that out of the Public Works building. Because by that time, I really felt that it was some idea that it's something that really could have worked. I thought that the work that the Planning and Zoning Commission did on it was good and careful. I think that the work you did on it later, the options of actually reducing the billboard in height would have made a big difference. That the other disadvantages that they had were manageable or could be mitigated. And then the advantages to the city came to the forefront in my mind and outweighed those disadvantages by a long shot. And that's the that's the message I left with the Planning and Zoning Commission, which basically said, well, the council wants to undo this work we did, so okay, we'll do what they want. I said, wait a minute, let's leave it on the books, and that's what I'm asking you to do tonight. I hope that somewhere we can find 3 votes to not undo what we did. The decision on the Public Works Center has been made, but you did have to cut the building dramatically in size, and that's a real big advantage. This billboard has the potential of a substantial revenue source for the city. And I'm not on the council, I'm planning and zoning. I don't normally think about revenue, but I still have to do that because I'm a member of the community. The other advantage, and I as a planner can talk to you about that, is that the deal that you worked with the applicant, Clear Channel, to take down the billboards on Solano was a big deal in my mind. I have personal experience with that on a project I worked on many years back, in the D Street widening in Hayward, where I worked on the EIR for the city of Hayward on that. There was a billboard on a transmission shop that was in the way. They said to the owner of the transmission shop, we'd like to buy your shop. And he said, well, I'm ready to retire, okay. But the billboard's upstairs, and you need to deal with them for that. That was difficult. And the word in the Planning Commission, in the planning community, is billboards are impossible to remove. It is, and that's what happened in Hayward, in my experience. You don't negotiate a deal with them. They say, no, we'll sue us. You condemn it, and we will fight every way. And they wanted like 50 years worth of revenue from Hayward just to close down the billboard. I mean, something like that. I wasn't the attorneys on it. I didn't get involved in it, but I know it delayed the project by a couple of years. This is a hard to get rid of billboards. And what your deal is here is you have the potential with a deal with Clear Channel to get what they want out there, a modern, up-to-date, more energy efficient billboard out there on the freeway, a dimmer billboard where only freeway people can see it if it's done right, and get rid of the billboards on Solano, which that's the node in our general plan. That is an area where that is sort of the center of town, and I would like to see the development potential of that area not be constrained by those 2 billboards that are up there that hardly anyone notices. They're out of date, but they're there. And you'll see signs on them all the time. And Montero's is empty right now, but I'll bet you that's an important source of revenue for whoever owns that building. So that's what I'd like to see. I'm really hoping that you don't just undo what the Planning and Zoning Commission did right now. Leave those provisions in the zoning ordinance. Keep the options open. Maybe you won't do it for the Public Works building, but think about Pierce Street Park. There's $150,000 a year. That can be leveraged in bond money in how many millions did you have to cut out of the Public Works building? $2 million in capital costs for that. That $150,000 can be a real benefit to the city from my point of view. And I think you should go that way. Great.
Allow for questions here?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from the City Council?
Thank you.
Wait, did you give Phil? Oh,
No.
okay, thank you. Any comments from City Council?
Well, the thing that I need to point out to the folks that have spoken about this issue is, the oath of office I took when I became a council member in Albany is to represent 20,000 people. And if there was a way, and I think it needs to be explored, that we could make this digital billboard from the condos as invisible as the Albany steel sign, which I think many of you are aware of now, but is invisible from the condos, then that would, and also I would like to stipulate that the sign be built in such a way that no one can ever see the front side of it from the condos. I think that's easy. I think we lower it, as Commissioner Donaldson said, so only people on the freeway can see it. And what we get out of that then is the removal of the 2 billboards on Montero's plus $150,000 a year. So if you're opposed to us keeping this ordinance on the books, then you need to explain to us why it's okay to maintain those 2 billboards at Monteros, because that's part of the deal. In fact, I've read the website, the Stop Billboards in Albany website, and most of the literature that was anti-billboard on your website was about type of billboards that are in urban areas like on top of Monteros. So, you know, this to me is a swap. We get rid of some billboards which are in the middle of Albany, and we put up a billboard which no one in Albany can see that's on the freeway. So please tell me how to think about this swap. There's 20,000 people in this town, I represent them. Talk to me about the swap. So I would be willing to consider keeping this initiative on the books if that met 3 conditions. One is that no one could see it from the condos, and I think that would be pretty straightforward. I would be willing to consider keeping the initiative on the books, or the ordinance on the books, if the sign was below the height limit in the CMX zone, because anybody now can build a building at the height limit. That's part of our code. And I would also like to make sure that it goes through design review, because I know when I listened to P&Z on this issue, they had some interesting ideas about how you would make the backside of this integrate more into the building. So those are my thoughts.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, but should we open this up to the public first?
Well,
before
no.
we start?
We
We
can.
can,
Public.
okay. Yeah, you know, this was the digital billboard was a means to an end, and the end was a larger public works building that we thought the city could use. And I don't know that any of us were so enamored with digital billboards, but the income obviously is pretty interesting. You know, at this point, all the provisions that I could see that you'd have to put on this to make it acceptable to enough members of the community would probably take it out of the running to be acceptable to Clear Channel. In other words, if the thing was low enough that it wasn't in the viewscape of the condos, you know, I had suggested early on that this be all either solar powered or wind powered or done in some way that it didn't affect our greenhouse gas emissions. I'm not so sure that's an easy thing to do or even feasible. But if you brought it down below the building, if it had been, there was just a number of things in my mind that were not handled very well. It should have been part of a design review for the entire building rather than something tacked on. If it had been, you know, if it had been presented as part of a design review in the form that we saw it, it would never have gotten out of planning and zoning, because that form of being high up there in the air, I don't think anybody thought that was what was coming down the pike. It seems to me at this point we're, you know, the animals are already out, and we're kind of, you know, saving this is kind of closing the barn door a little bit too late. Yeah, there are other things that we can use the income for, but there's other things that are in discussion to get some income here at the Civic Center. So anyway, I'd like to hear what the community members who have shown up and have the big stake in this have to say on this, and then add some other thoughts later.
Yeah, I'm not unconscious. I think that Mr. Donaldson makes some very good points about the benefits that the city could realize. But to my mind, even if it were possible to economically mitigate all of the impacts, the visual impacts from the perspective of the condos, I think we need to think about whether we want Albany to be at the forefront of kind of a race to the bottom on LED billboards. If there were a lot of these up and down the corridor, I might feel differently. But the notion that we're going to create these impacts to the freeway corridor and to the various members of the public who may not be part of our community troubles me a lot. I think that we should be thinking about the larger obligations that we have as one East Bay town working with others to protect the visual quality that all of us experience here. So I'm very reluctant to see LED billboards put up by freeways in return for our local civic benefits unless they are just desperately needed, or there is a really very, very clear trade that is really compelling. And I just don't see that here.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public, comments? Would people like to line up against the wall, speak after 3 minutes?
Hello, my name's Chris Kirkham. I'm a resident at 545 Pierce Street. I'm also the coordinator of the group Stop the Billboard. We have the website. We've been putting on meetings. You may remember we turned in more than 300 petitions where people not only asked that we remove the digital billboard at the Public Works building, but that we overturn the ordinance that allowed that to occur. So I also have some questions about if we control this billboard to the extent that some have suggested, if we make it parallel to the freeway and put all these shields around it and make it really low, are we still going to be getting the 150,000 that Clear Channel spoke of in the beginning? I really kind of doubt it. That's what the Albany steel billboard is. It's a parallel configuration. And then personally, I go out to the Albany Bulb, I walk along the water, and I'm a resident there, and so I'm more inclined to use those parks and trails. And I don't want to be looking at flashing giant ads while I'm out there enjoying the park. There are actually quite a bit of bicyclists that use that trail. You'd be surprised during the week. And it's just not something I want to stare at. We put flashing lights on the top of buildings and antennas for a reason, so that they stick out. And I know a digital billboard may not flash as frequently as kind of a warning light, but still, this is a giant sign to be seen by everyone driving down the freeway. And I don't want to look at it when I'm out there, even if it's controlled when I'm a resident and I'm in my home. I don't want to look at it when I'm out there enjoying the parks. That's going to distract from my enjoyment of those parks. Just to remind you, our organization, we have 200 people on our mailing list, and I think they'd support everything I've said today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Dee Jacobson. I think this is the third or fourth time that I've spoken before you as well against the installation of these digital billboards. I live at 555 Pierce Street, and these billboards would be very, very, have a really negative impact on the views, on our property values, on what I'd be seeing when I'm walking up and down from my home in Pierce Street. Also on the Bay Trail, I don't want to see this flashing digital ads and so forth. We've talked about the negative impact it would have on the environment, on the wildlife, on the marshlands. It has a negative impact on traffic on the freeway. There's some indication that there are studies that show that these billboards increase accidents. I think that we don't want to be known as the community with the digital billboard by the bay rather than the urban village by the bay. That billboard would be visible if you climbed Albany Hill. When you look back and you see the views, this is one of the things that you would see. And I agree. I don't think that if we decrease the shape and size and so forth of this billboard to the point where it would be acceptable to us, I doubt very much that would have commercial value to Clear Channel. I also think that if anything in the future is done, the city, the people here, and they've spoken, there have been many, many people have spoken before you against this thing. I don't know anyone who's in favor of it. That the people be involved in this process at an early level and that you know what's going on. I think that this was sort of, we feel it was snuck in. And I hope you will not listen to the reasonings of Commissioner Donaldson. I think that it's not apples. It's not an apples for apples or oranges swap. in order to get rid of the billboards on Montero. So I hope you'll adopt what they're suggesting from the staff and change this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for entertaining more discussion about this very important issue. I'd like to address just a couple of remarks that Mr. Donaldson has said today. You know, I think that he probably, as an individual and the rest of the Planning Commission, put good time and attention to this, and they were tasked to do something, and they did. But the fact that they were asked to work up a bad idea, an idea that was kind of not well thought out, not well planned, and not really very smart in the long run, the idea to use a digital billboard to get funding for a public works building, that just wasn't a very good idea. And the fact that the Planning Commission had to take it and develop it, I feel is unfortunate, because I think Mr. Donaldson and his colleagues probably spent a lot of time on a plan that just didn't have legs. So it's not surprising that now he may be saying, you know, let's not give it up. We spent a lot of good time on it. I don't doubt that. But that is not the grounds to continue to support a mediocre and dead in the water idea. The other thing that I disagree with that he said was the disadvantages cannot be mitigated. Nobody has really been talking about the environmental effects, the fact that CEQA would have to be adhered to. There's no way that this project would just squeak by on a negative declaration. Ain't no way. So it would involve a full-scale environmental review, and I think that the Sierra Club and all the other wildlife protectors in this area would be able to prevail if there was a lawsuit drawn out. Getting rid of the billboards at Montero, it's apples and oranges. It's not an equal swap. Getting them to take down 2 paper billboards that really don't have a lot of projection value in exchange for implementing the first LED billboard, the first one in Albany. That is not a clean swap at all. And I just ask that you, as the protectors of the city and the unique environment and beautiful environment we have, really take your stewardship seriously and not let a LED billboard, let's not be the first community to abandon our Bayside to electronic and visual pollution just for the sake of a short-term fiscal solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. Again, thank you for all your time and effort in this. I'm Judith Carrillo. I live at 545 Pierce. This is my 3rd time before you. Commissioner Donaldson did make really good points in it the night that many of us were at the planning meeting. He had extremely very good points, and they put in a tremendous amount of work. I can see it because I read each detail in the document that they put together. But I don't agree with the fact that swapping is going to be an even swap. I see his point of making that billboards are very difficult to get rid of, and you can never get rid of them. I think that's an extremely strong point for if you put in that digital billboard, you're never going to get rid of it. I agree with many of the points that have already been said, so I don't want to repeat those, but I think it's going to bring down property taxes, which also brings down revenue for you. And each parcel of land, you have multiple people all the way up. So it's a larger amount of money than one single person living there. The Albany steel you keep mentioning, I see that every night. I mean, it shines in my living room, it shines in both my bedrooms. Bright red sign. I wish it wasn't there, but I moved in and it was already there. So I don't know that that's a great solution. Anyway, I really, again, really agree with the fact that we should not be a city of digital billboards. They're a traffic hazard. They're distracting. I'm easily distracted driving, and I don't like the ones that are on the Bay Bridge because they take your eyes right off the road and not what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Igor Tregup. I am the Vice Chair of the San Francisco Bay Chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm also a Berkeley resident and serve on the Zoning Adjustments Board, so I have a lot of respect and appreciation as well for the work that the Planning Commission has done. And I know it's not easy to take something where a lot of time and thought has been spent and pull it back. I know that's not easy, and I can appreciate that. The Sierra Club is, of course, on record as opposing the LED billboards. We are fighting this issue in parts of Oakland as well as along the I-80, at the entrance to the bridge. Much has already been said about the impacts on the quality of life, and some has been said about the environmental impacts. Of course, it's the latter that is the primary concern of the Sierra Club. You have had in your packet letters from both the Sierra Club and from CESP regarding the issues that this presents on migrating birds, leading to avian deaths and, at the very least, a disruption of natural bird habitat. In addition to that, the Sierra Club believes strongly in an uninterrupted park along the East Shore, and of course, this would disrupt the quiet ability of residents throughout the Bay Area to enjoy that park. It would also have impacts on bicyclists and pedestrians, which of course we have advocated for the ability of to use that land freely to pursue recreation and healthy exercise that is car-free. We applaud the direction in which this has gone. We appreciate the vote of the majority of the Planning Commission and the direction that staff has taken, and we certainly hope that today you will take the first step in approving an ordinance that is sound policy on environmental and a number of other grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the last speaker? I think so. Back to the City Council. Marge, did you want to speak first?
Well, I agree with the fact that we've already voted on whether we really wanted to do the billboard. To me, it's a dead horse, even if it's out the gate or behind the gate. Anyway, what we're voting on tonight, I feel, is to take the idea that we had started with when we actually were kind of in a rush to try to get the process off the ground, and that we are saying we are reversing, we don't want to do this anymore. If somebody else wants to have that idea in the future, then they can figure out how they want to do that. But for the moment, we are just backtracking because it probably was a bad idea and we didn't recognize it. So that's where I am.
Michael?
Okay, I'd like to see a show of hands. I went down more than once to the big digital billboard in Berkeley at the corner of the Access Road and Virginia Street and spent probably about a half hour to 40 minutes walking around looking at how many people have been down there in the last month to look at the big billboard down there. Okay, I also spent about an hour out on the bike trail right at Albany Steel with my camera, with my binoculars. Did anybody go down there specifically to check out what the billboard might look like from the bike trail? I personally, okay, first of all, the fact that no one even mentions the Berkeley digital billboard is an indication that we can live with them because people seem to forget that it's there. Also, the Sierra Club, it is my understanding that the Sierra Club implicitly signed off on that billboard because revenue from that billboard went to fund the Tom Bates Sports Center and the grand swap where the owl habitat was moved to the plateau. I have never heard for example, the Yodelers had 2 articles recently on the digital billboard plague in the Bay Area. The digital billboard in Berkeley is not mentioned at all. So if the Sierra Club and people have forgotten about that billboard and they don't have a problem with it, I don't see why they'd have a problem with our billboard. Secondly, on the bike trail out there, that spot in front of Albany Steel and the spot where we would build our Public Works Center is the most godforsaken spot out there. The bike trail is nice south of Tom Bates towards Emeryville because it's away from the freeway. It's nice from Costco north for the same reason. It winds along the water and gets away from the freeway. In the area between Buchanan Street and Costco, it's right along the freeway. There's a chain link fence as you ride along there. You're literally at the same level of the exhaust pipes of the vehicles. If there's a bad accident, those cars would be careening onto the bike trail because it's really right at the end of the shoulder. It's incredibly noisy. There's no birds there. It's brightly lit. Any freeway sign would be on the other side of the freeway from the birds. The birds are actually sheltered much farther south because a prevailing wind blows out of the northwest, and it's much calmer and quieter further south because the wind is blocked by the bulb, and the freeway elevates at Buchanan Street, so that's quite a bit quieter. There's much less freeway noise at Buchanan than there is up, a quarter mile further north. So you can get on Google Earth and you can look and see how far that billboard would be from where the birds actually are in the lee of the bulb, and it's 600 to 900 yards, about a third to a half a mile away. So do I think the birds are really going to be bothered by this billboard? Probably no more than they're bothered by the one that already exists in Berkeley. So I find, if you actually get out there and do a little field work, some of these arguments, I think, are not as plausible sounding as they may appear to be at first. So I have a couple of ways that we could go. One is we could just find out. There's a lot of speculation about, what would a plan that lowers the digital billboard and puts it behind the maintenance center look like? Well, we could find that out before we make up our mind. I think that would be reasonable. Or we could amend the ordinance to specify that the billboard would have to be below a certain height, and apply some extra conditions. And I'm not sure I really think in the long run that I would approve of the ordinance as it is, carte blanche, but I think it's premature to cancel it. I have too many questions. I'm looking for a solution here that might work, that would get rid of the billboards on Monteros, that would provide $150,000 a year of income, and could be invisible basically from the condos. Now, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Pete, did you want to add anything?
What you said before? Well, it's sort of a reiteration of what I said before. If this thing had been rolled out in a different way, if we had stated that, yes, we were going to have to do a CQUA that all groups were going to have to sign off on, which may or may not have happened, I don't know. That would be one question we never actually explored. If the thing had been low enough, I agree with what was stated. If this had been okay for the residents, I don't know that it would have made it for Clear Channel. I'm not sure we could have made both happy and ended up with something. It was a means to an end, the end being a larger public works building. It's something that would have been great, but I think we can probably live with the one we've now approved. So to my mind, at this point, we are kind of beating a dead horse. And even if we end it tonight, we take it off the books, if there's some future date, we can look, we think we need the income for the Pierce Street Park or some other deal, well, we could go through this process again, and hopefully we would kind of not make the same mistakes in the way this was presented both to residents at Pierce Street or to the environmental community, and we might be able to come up with something that would work. if we were desperate for that income right now, I think I'd be pushing for it more, but, you know, city's not in that situation right now.
Okay. Rochelle?
Is a motion in order, or?
Yes.
I would be willing to move the staff recommendation.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, poll the council, please.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
No.
Councilmember Nason?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Aye.
Mayor Wow?
Yes. Okay, so that passes 4 out of 5 votes. And on to the next item.
New business, request for City Council to support Be the Match Firehouse Challenge, August 11th through September 30th, 2014. Staff recommendation that the council adopt resolution number 2014-72, a resolution of the Albany City Council supporting the Be the Match Firehouse Challenge, August 11th, 2014 through September 30th, 2014.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. My name is James Sanders. I'm with the Albany Fire Department. This is Jonathan Dawn. He's with the Albany Fire Department. A few months ago, we were asked by neighboring fire agencies to participate in a friendly fire department competition in collaboration with Be the Match Foundation, which is a foundation that facilitates the bone marrow registry, and it works with people that have lymphoma, leukemia, sickle cell, and other blood cancers. They kind of facilitate donors, they get funds, and they also spread knowledge out to communities about these cancers and diseases. We are participating in a challenge with other fire agencies in the area to help raise awareness, collect funds, and sign up donors, recruit donors to our registry. And we are asking for the City Council to support our efforts in that fundraiser. We have a little slideshow that we want to present to you as just to be knowledgeable with the with what. So, Be the Match, the Be the Match Firefighters Challenge. Can you guys see? Everybody see? Yeah. I was afraid this was going to happen. Oh, there we go. So, Be the Match is it's a foundation that deals with people that are diagnosed with life-threatening blood cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, and they help cure the diseases. Over the past 25 years, Be the Match has managed bone marrow registries around the world, and currently they have 11 million people signed up onto their registry worldwide. We can help by supporting patients, caregivers, and families, and conduct research that is saving lives today, provide clinical education for healthcare professionals, and connect patients with life-saving bone marrow donors. A lot of this money goes to patients. 40% of everybody that is either a donor or needs a transfusion has to travel by air to a different location. And what Be the Match does with their funds is it helps for those airplane flights, hotels, people have specific times off work. It helps to pay their compensation for missed hours of work. Every 4 minutes, someone is diagnosed with blood cancer. For many of these patients, a bone transplant is the only hope. Most patients that need a match, it does not come from their family. It's very rare. 7 out of 10 patients that need this have to get blood transfusion somewhere else. It's very tough to get a match. Just little bullet points. In 2013, 6,300 patients received their marrow transplant. 3.2 million patient assistance was provided to 1,800 families, and there was 254 research studies. Locally in the Bay Area, 126 patients received a transplant. California, 893 patients searched for a match, and since 2005, 583 patients in California have received $696,700 in patient assistance grants. We are asking the City of Albany and the Albany Firefighter Association to partner up and support this effort to get the word out there and recruit people to get on the registry and hopefully find a match. The Firehouse Firefighters Challenge runs from August 11th through September 30th, and like I said earlier, we're doing this with our local fire agencies. The benefits is that it encourages the involvement of the firehouse and the community. It provides a positive team building experience, strengthens relationship in our community, and presents a life-saving opportunity for all, enhancing morale. Our practices that we have formed a planning committee with myself, Jonathan Dunn, Kim Denton, and another firefighter, Gavin O'Bear. We have had multiple meetings with Be the Match Foundation in coming up with ideas about local fundraisers, events, and recruitments on how to get people onto our registry. And this is Baylor. He is an 8-year-old who lives in Albany, and he is going through a second bout with leukemia at this time, still looking for a match. And we would like to show our support for him and everybody else in the world with this disease. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you partnering with the schools?
We have not reached out with the schools yet, but that is in our plan to talk with schools and see if they can do bake sales and stuff like that. So we have that on our agenda, and we're going to get to them in like the beginning of August. Comes back on board.
And people who are interested in donating would write a check to Be the Match, or?
Well, yes. What they would do is they would write a check to either Be the Match or our firefighter association, and then we would give that money to Be the Match. There is a form for tax write-offs and stuff through Be the Match that people can fill out for that.
Other questions?
Can you put the form on this, excuse me, on the city website, or do they have to come to the station?
We would love to put the form on the city website, and we were told in order to do that, we would like the city to adopt this fundraiser so we can use resources like the website and banners and stuff like that to do.
Good. Do I hear a motion to make that happen?
Yeah, so moved.
So moved. Okay, also second.
Okay, polling us.
Councilmember Atkinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Nason.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moss.
Aye.
Mayor Wow.
Yes, unanimous. Okay, you're on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Item 9.2.
Next item, request for proposals consulting services related to preparation of the Albany Neck and Bulb Transition Improvement Plan. Staff recommendation that the council authorize the release of a request for proposals, RFP, for consulting services related to preparation of the Albany Neck and Bulb Transition Improvement Plan.
Good evening again. This agenda item provides the council an opportunity to review a draft request for proposals, which we will use to retain a consultant to prepare the Albany Neck and Bulb Transition Improvement Plan. The preparation of the plan is a crucial step towards the implementation of the McLaughlin East Shore State Park. The plan will help us form the basis for subsequent agreements to transfer property with various agencies. In addition, it will help us facilitate future budgeting and support applications that we would like to pursue for grant funding to make improvements to the bulb. The city has received a grant of $186,000 from the California Coastal Conservancy to develop the plan. With your approval, we would circulate the RFP to experienced and qualified professional landscape and open space design consultants and engineers. Following the receipt of the proposals, we would organize an interdisciplinary panel to review the proposals and select a short list of the most qualified firms to interview. Following those interviews, we presume a recommendation would emerge from the panel, and that recommendation would come back to the City Council for approval of a contract with that consulting firm, hopefully early this fall. The RFP has been drafted to request a proposal for a series of deliverables. Among various items include a hazard assessment and mediation plan, an analysis of the site's vulnerability to climate change and sea level rise, a concept level plan for park improvements and associated phasing with those improvements, cost estimates, an operations and management program, and environmental review, which will be required. Through all of this, there would be opportunities for public participation at key milestones. In addition, staff would work with stakeholders throughout the process. The final version of the RFP, with your approval, the final version of the RFP would be released right after we receive final comments from the Coastal Conservancy. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the City Council?
Yeah, I see you're budgeting $60,000 of in-kind contributions from staff time. Do you really have $60,000 worth of staff time? You seem kind of thinly staffed to me.
It is a high priority for us, so we will make the time available. We will certainly do that. We've done that we're doing that for the general plan and other initiatives. So yeah, I think we can do this.
And how much sleep are you getting?
Well, Claire Griffin is the one who's going to lose the most sleep, I'm hoping.
Just checking.
Thank you, Claire. Pete?
Oh, okay, well, something about the staff time. Was the $60,000 coming out of the $168,000, or that's in addition?
That's
to
our donation.
It's just kind of putting a dollar value on the staff time. We're not hiring more staff to do this. We're putting value on the hours that we're putting in what you pay us to work every day.
Okay, so it's it's really that 60,000 isn't in addition to the 160. No. You've already budgeted for our staff time. Oh, right. Okay.
And it's in a sense a way of measuring the priority that we'd be putting on it.
The other question, it was a little unclear looking at both the staff report and the RFP language, how much the public is participating in this. In the staff report, it sounds like it's more kind of, well, we're going to be open for comments on it. In the RFP, I almost thought I had read something like public workshops, or what's your vision of public participation?
Well, this community values public participation greatly, as you well know.
Yeah.
Part of what I would hope that we get from the competing consulting firms are different ideas about how they would engage our community. And some consulting firms use kind of the old style. We'll have a town hall meeting or something. There are some interesting emerging technologies using social media, that kind of stuff. So I don't have a specific public engagement proposal for you, but I do know that this won't be successful without giving everybody a chance to engage at various steps along the way.
So the RFP basically is saying, you tell us how we can best do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rochelle?
I'm interested in hearing about the channels of communication with the East Bay Regional Park District, about how you've been working with them up to this point and how you see working with them through the completion of this project, because I think ultimately the measure of success is going to be the acceptability to the park district, and we hope to keep it on track to get there.
Bob Nesbitt is my main contact. However, in our last conversation, I think that he and the board there are willing to sit down and start kind of hacking out an MOU for the ultimate transition. We want to make sure that everyone is confident in our ability to continue to keep folks off the bulb from camping. And I think there's a little bit of, I think that as we work through this public process, they're going to see how involved the community is, and how it maybe a year from now, when it's finally, completed, rough timeline, then it'll be a year longer that we've shown that we're sticking to our guns and that we don't have encampments out on the bulb. So I think there's a little bit of just waiting to see how we're going. But Bob Nesbitt and I have been in contact many times. We plan to have him or someone of his a designee from the East Bay Regional Park District to sit on the selection board. We also sent the RFP to them so they could get their blessing on what their scope of work is, and they were okay with the scope of work as written. So they've been included really from the get-go, from the beginning, and we continue to talk about what comes next. But they're taking the baby steps with us.
Good. Okay, members of the public. Okay, back to the
I
city
have a
council.
comment. Well, I would like to congratulate Penelope and your staff for getting a grant of $168,000. It's very impressive to continue our, effort to make a space for all of Albany. And of course, we know that people from all over the Bay Area use the bulb. When I've been down there, often it's somebody from someplace else, not even Albany. So it's a real regional gem, and I have a couple of friends that have decided to try to go back out there for walks since it has been cleared of campers, and are very impressed with the work that the city has done. So congratulations for a job well done to help get the grant, and also for working with Bob and closely with the East Bay Park. So appreciate it.
Can you walk us through just a brief timeline of the next few years, to the extent we can predict that? And is $168,000 plus $60K of staff time really going to get this done? And are we going to be there? And where will we be in 2 years once this money is exhausted?
In terms of the timeline, I think that a year from now, I would expect us to be, and maybe even a little less than that, coming back to you with a draft for your approval for the plan. $168,000, I think Jeff did a very good job of putting together the budget that we submitted to the Coastal Conservancy, so I do think that we'll be okay with $168,000. In terms of what comes next, in conversations I've had with BCDC and East Bay Regional Park District over the last almost year now, I think that they're very motivated to help us find funding to actually implement the plan. So our next step would really be, once the plan is adopted, that we start going after monies. And if anything comes along in the meantime, we would, of course, keep our eye on it. But the plan is really what's going to help us be able to apply for grant funding to implement the plan.
Okay, is there a motion?
I would move the staff recommendation.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, poll the council.
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Nason?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Moss?
Aye.
Mayor Weil?
Yes, that passes unanimously. Okay, 9.3.
Designation of voting delegates and alternates for League of California Cities Annual Conference. Staff recommendation that the council designate a voting delegate and alternates for the League of California Cities Annual Conference.
Okay. Do I have interested parties?
So the date is September 3rd through 5th in Los Angeles. I would recommend anybody who would like to do it.
Okay. Anyone interested? Rochelle, you're interested?
I'd love to.
Okay. Anyone else? Probably it's a good idea to have an alternative.
I'd be willing to be an
person.
alternate because I have family down there, but I wouldn't plan on going necessarily unless there's someone else that.
I mean, I would do it. I would say I was the one that got to go to Sacramento last time.
Sacramento.
I wouldn't want to take the honor.
If you'd like to be that, I'll be the second alternate.
Okay, why don't,
Okay,
how does that sound? Rochelle is our first representative, and then Pete, our first alternate, and then Marge, second alternate.
Sure.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay, we're on.
I move that we accept all that.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Everyone in
Voice
favor?
vote, yay.
Say yes. Okay.
Yes.
9.4.
Council appointments to county regional bodies. Staff recommendation that the council review and update the appointments to county and regional bodies.
Okay, so in our packet, we have a list of everything. I guess we should just go through it. What do you think, Penelope, one by one?
I think going through them one by one, because there's some there that will probably not change, so I think it should go pretty quickly.
Okay. So the mayor's conference, Pete and I will be the people for that. City transportation, Michael, are you good to continue? Okay. Alameda County Library Commission.
Mayor Weil.
Pardon me.
For the Transportation Commission, an appointee, the appointee is blank. We have Barnes as the alternate,
So
so
we
if we
should
could have
fill in the
another
blank.
individual to fill in.
Anyone else interested in being on the Transportation Commission?
Well, you know, I'd actually gone to a number of these when Peggy was unable to do it. So I was never really quite sure who was the alternative, but it wasn't. I thought, if, Michael, if you want to start going into them, there, I would.
I'm happy to be the alternate.
Okay, it's you're it then. Would you like to do it?
You'll be the primary.
Okay, I'll keep going. I have to say, whoever says they're going to go to this should go to a lot of them, because they're probably the most complicated ones, I think,
Yeah.
of all these type of things, and it takes a while to, you know, catch up.
We need that continuity. So you're good for being the primary?
I'll keep going as the primary on that one.
Okay, okay, Nicole, we're good. Okay, Library Commission.
We don't have somebody there already?
If I may, that used to be a member of the council, however, now it is a appointee from the actual library board, so that one is resolved as is.
Okay, so Ronnie is in that position.
Actually, a library board appointee who is Alan Riffer.
Oh, okay, Alan Riffer. Okay. Association of Bay Area Government, General Assembly, Barnes and Moss.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. League of California Cities.
I've been doing that for Peggy when she couldn't go. I'd be happy to do that, or have Rochelle be the first or the alternate.
I'd be happy to be the alternate, sure.
Okay. Okay, so Atkinson and Nason.
Unless somebody else wants it, I'm fine with that.
Waste Management, Pete and myself. Rochelle, would you like to be the alternate on that? Often important environmental issues come up there.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll substitute Rochelle for me on that. Alameda City Housing Authority, I think Ruth is no longer doing that.
She's continuing.
Oh, she is?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Reappointed.
Oh, no alternate allowed, okay. The sports field, we should have a strong voice there. We haven't, was someone going to check on the next meeting? Penelope?
Yeah, they haven't had a meeting in a while, but I'll check with the City of Berkeley to find out when it is.
Okay.
We typically meet at 5:30, either the second or third Wednesday of the month, just to give you an idea.
Okay.
No.
And I've been attending those meetings actually just out of personal interest the last year and a half or so.
You want to continue?
I'll be there anyway. So
You're
I'm
it.
happy to do it.
Let's put you down as our primary.
Great.
And Pete, you want to be the alternate?
I'm happy to be the alternate, because I have actually attended a few of those.
You're
also.
interested in
Yeah,
sports
also,
issues, I know.
Right.
Okay. Mental Health Board, we have 2 people already. And then successor agency to the Albany Committee Reinvestment Agency. Well, we have no one,
Well, Bob Weaver's
actually,
been doing
because it's been dismantled, right? Okay, so,
It's the oversight board to
yeah.
the successor agency, so it is currently in existence, and Robert Lieber continues to serve
Oh, he
as
is.
an appointee of the council.
oh,
So that is
He
effective.
followed that when we were having that problem, so.
okay. Is that all right with everybody? We continue, Robert? Okay, and the meetings with the school district and UC, that's usually mayor, vice mayor. I'd like to continue that. That's okay with everybody.
Fine.
Police and Fire Pension Board, that would be Pete and me. Disaster Policy Advisory Group. That hasn't
I didn't
met
even know I was on
in
that.
100 years.
They haven't been meeting.
When have they last met?
Karina kind of took that over when that position was created, because we, we're having a hard time getting everybody together, and we weren't being very effective, and so it's better now, but I don't know if we still have a group.
What do you think we should do with that, Nicole and
You know, we
Penelope?
did connect with the fire chief, Lance Calkins, on this one, and because it's in our municipal code, it's important that we keep it in existence.
Okay.
And our municipal code actually spells out that the vice mayor is the appointee. So that's why Vice Mayor Moss is indicated as the appointee. In terms of the alternate, Barnes was listed as the alternate in the previous version of this, so that would be up for discussion.
So will there be a need for a meeting anytime soon, or?
Conceivably in the near to mid-range future, yes, because we are reviewing some of our disaster policy and procedures, and that would be something to discuss.
That's right.
Okay.
We're kind of looking at, with the school
Okay.
district, about
Yeah.
coordinating plans more, and, yeah. So it actually may come to life. All right. So that's everything, right?
May I ask one question? League of California Cities East Bay, can you please confirm the appointee and the designee, alternate?
Let's
Me.
see.
Atkinson.
Atkinson primary
Okay.
and alternate Nason.
Thank you.
So I think we got everybody then. Okay.
Looks good.
And then reports about meetings.
I was sent something today that seemed interesting. It would, if it's on the same dates as the League of California Cities meeting, but it's, the AIA is doing a conference on resilient cities and how to respond to climate change and things like that in San Francisco. And that same weekend, you know, you should be an AIA member. I don't know that any of us are, but Academy of, what is that? AIA is, it's the architectural group.
Yeah.
American
Right.
Institute of Art.
So,
Huh. You ought to get somebody there. Are there?
yeah.
Can you do any research on that, about who on our, on planning and zoning might be able to go to represent the city? And then maybe give us a report here? How's that sound?
You know, I'm not,
Mhm.
I just sort of superficially looked at it, but
No,
it's probably something
It
we
sounds like a
should
great subject
check out.
for us to check out.
Yeah.
Good, thanks, Pete. Anybody else with meetings? I'll just mention two. One is that Penelope and I met with the new superintendent of the Albany schools, and Pete will be joining us, and we'll be having monthly meetings to just coordinate, you know, our services, and then also bringing in someone from UC. So we'll be.
Is this the old 2x2x2 thing?
Yes,
revamped?
we've been meeting for a while, and we want to all resume those meetings. And then I met with members of the community, and then also our staff liaison to the library board, and the head of the library board, the current librarian, to work on clarifying, and also a member of the county, not a member of the county librarian, along with Penelope and Nicole, to just clarify some of the procedures that we're involved in at the library and how to have better communication about what we're doing there. So we'll be having our next library board meeting in September, and I'll be attending that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's it. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Adjourned.
We are adjourned.
I should remind people about September meeting. Tuesday, September 2nd, because Monday's a holiday.
Thank you.